Good afternoon, everybody! My name is Jeff Kurtz, WJPZ class of 2015. Thank you. I want to just say, I know I'm no Ralph Versa. This is the second year in a row that I've had to fill his shoes, and let me say, his shoes are usually a lot prettier than mine that I'm wearing right now. But we're thinking of him. We're thinking of all of our WJPZ friends and family that couldn't be here this weekend, but glad that they are going to be able to see this video shortly. So this is a big day. Who is ready to bring in quite a few new Hall of Fame members? And this is the work of so many to bring in new Hall of Fame members. It is no small feat to be nominated. It's no small feat to enter this exclusive club, but it takes a lot of bodies and a lot of brains in order to get those nominations and in order to find our candidates. This is incredible, and we start with the one man, Jeff Wade, who helps make that happen.
They are style.
Thank you so much for being here to celebrate our esteemed alumni. We are about to induct our 16th class of nominees. With this year's class, we will now be over 40 nominees, 42 inductees, I should say. So we're really excited to welcome these people. But as Jeff mentioned, it does not happen solely by me, by any stretch of the imagination. On the screen now, you see everybody, and there's almost more than 24 people that actually take part in this process. I want to thank all our nominating committee members and selection committee members. I called them out by name in the last meeting, but I do also want to acknowledge a couple of people that helped make this production possible for me. I want to thank John, Hall of Famer from last year, John Jacquet, for helping put together the videos. Tegan Roll, second year in a row for her. She did a great job. Howard Deneroff, our longtime communications chair, is not here this year, but he helped with the graphics that you see. Another longtime board member, Lori Cooper-Himmett, she helped put together the VO that you hear for some of these videos that you're going to see momentarily. And then Alex is helping with the video and is helping with other technical stuff as we go through this process. Normally it's a text job, but there's a reason we can't do it this year. And then, of course, I want to thank my MC, Jeff Kurtz, for stepping in. And then, lastly, see behind me. Everything else I didn't already mention, Sam Candell. Getting this room reserved, and the food that you see outside, all that's Sam's production. So a big round of big thank you to her. We in the last meeting, we actually went ahead and made the announcement that we are we are going ahead and opening nominations for next year's class right now. So if you scan that QR code that's right behind me, you can, you guys can make nominations right now, okay? And I did want to point out, I mentioned a couple of names, Marty Dundix, longtime board member, Harry Waring, also a longtime board member, both of them stepping off the board this year. They are now eligible for the Hall of Fame. So if you want to nominate one of them or somebody else who feels very worthy, you can do that right now. So I encourage you to do that. We have one other person. We're going to be inducting 3 great people here this afternoon. There's one other person that is not here this afternoon, but wanted to say something real quick to all of you and our inductees.
Hello, 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 my friend. I can't wait to celebrate with all of you tonight. Came in all the way from Dallas, brought my husband Charles, and my son, our son David, flew in from Chicago to celebrate with us. Our daughter Rebecca drove up from Brooklyn. I think my former morning show partner Bill Keeler and his wife are going to join us, and all of you. Can't wait to celebrate with all of you tonight. Huge congratulations and mazel tov to Howie and Ben and Tex. So proud of you guys, and really glad and grateful to share this honor with you. I'll see you all tonight.
So I look forward to seeing all of you in the banquet for that great induction. So without further ado, thank you again for all of the people that make this possible. Thank you for being here to celebrate our amazing inductees, and let's get on with the program.
So excited that today our Hall of Fame will grow by 3 three incredible, well, BB Good technically last year, we'll hear from her tonight. So really 3, 4, it's a special year for WJPZ. And what I love about my job is I really don't have much work to do because the hardworking people you saw on that slide before have put together incredible introductions for our 3 Hall of Famers that we'll hear from today. So I'll keep my job easy and say our very first nominee and Hall of Famer that we will introduce today is Howard Deneroff, class of 1989. A very special introduction from Howard.
The WJPZ Alumni Association Hall of Fame welcomes Howard Deneroff, class of 1989.
Hey everybody, it's Ian Eagle, Syracuse class of 1990. So honored to be a part of this induction for Howard Deneroff into the WJPZ Alumni Association Hall of Fame. First of all, a little bit shocked. Younger steroids back in the day. To overlook that and still admit him into the Hall of Fame is really real progress. My memories of Howie, he was the adult in the room. Literally. He had a full-grown mustache. I was blown away. I could not grow a full-grown mustache. His was glorious. It worked for him. What else worked for him? His leadership skills. And that stood out from the very beginning. How he ran the department, WJPZ Sports, and he brought it to new heights. His creativity, his ingenuity, his foresight and insight, the programs and features that we were doing back then, they were new and they were breakthroughs, whether it was SU athletics, high school sports, local athletics. We were all over it, and it was thanks to the leadership and the ideas that Howie brought to the table. And that leadership really paved the way for his postgraduate career at Westwood One Sports, a impeccable and unparalleled run, not just in running the show, which he did, producing Super Bowls and national basketball championships and the Masters and so many other events, but his ability to recognize talent, to cultivate it, and develop it, it is remarkable. His ear, which I believe is the best I have ever been around in radio, it's a gift and something that he has given back in many ways because of his work with younger broadcasters and advice and a sounding board for those in business. That's just who he is, a consummate professional. So, Howie, congratulations. This is so richly deserved. And let's just call it the way we see it. That mustache has stood the test of time. One of two ways. Either you just sustained your look, or you look like a 58-year-old man as a college sophomore. Love you, bud. Congrats.
Thank you, Ian. Person who dropped everything. Thank you, Ian. That's a tough act to follow, which I knew it would be. I think as a producer, I would know better than to put myself after Ian, who's one of our great speakers of our generation, one of the greatest sportscasters of our generation. And, the truth is, Ian was the right person to do that for me, because Ian was here in the beginning for me. we started here. I started a little before him, but he was here in the mid-'80s with my mustache. And we still worked together 4 decades later at Western One. You know, I was so honored when we was able to work in the schedule to do football games for Western One, and we worked side by side together for Thursday Night Football and the NCAA tournament for years. And so proud of what he's become. I'd like to say I knew it immediately when I first heard him, and I did. No, he was special back then, and those of you who were around the station then knew that. And so thank you, Ian, for doing that introduction, and take the time to record that with your busy schedule. Ian and I both came to Syracuse for the same reason that so many students come to Syracuse. Back then and still now, we wanted to become the next great play-by-play announcer. One of us did that. In the spring of 1984, when we were both in high school, Sports Illustrated ran an article, for those of you who remember Sports Illustrated. And they called it, the article was called Sportscaster U. And it was a feature story on how Syracuse University kept churning out memorable voices in sports, and how Greg Papa was probably going to be the next great one along the way. It turns out that SI was correct about Greg, but that feature story in high school was all I needed to know where I wanted to come to school and where I had to come to school, right here at Syracuse. But I had to do some work and convince my divorced parents about 3 things in order to let them send me here. That Syracuse was considered Ivy League for broadcasting. And that if I came here and received a degree in Newhouse, I would be rolling in money because broadcasting was a lucrative field. And the snow really wasn't that bad, and they could come and visit me anytime, and I'd be able to go back home anytime and visit them too. Thank God there was no internet for them to look up any of those things. And somehow I convinced them of that. And truthfully, that is the only time in my life that I remember my parents agreeing on anything. And I appreciate and thank them for allowing me to come here and pursue my dream of broadcasting, because I know that's not what they really thought I should be doing. And so thank you to both of them. I'm thankful that they're both still alive here. That article I mentioned a moment ago was mostly about WAER's long legacy. By contrast, WJP's legacy had just started, and I was lucky to be able to hop on the train just as it started to get rolling. I actually knew nothing about Z89 until the day I got to campus, and as fate would have it, 2 members of the Z89 sports staff lived on my floor on Saturday. Neil Prezon was the sports director at the time. Jim Morrison was the assistant sports director at the time. And when we were all doing the introductions on that first night, and I explained to them, you guys didn't come off the tag on my jacket. And when I told them why I was here on campus, they said, well, coincidentally, we run the sports department at the other radio station here at Syracuse University, and we're having orientation next week, and you should come down and check it out. I'm so glad I did, and I'm forever grateful to both of them. Everybody needs somewhere to start in their career, and if it was not for Neil specifically, give me the chance, certainly wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have had the career I had. Anybody in this room who was an alum or students now know what I'm about to say and will understand this. From the moment I walked into that studio down the hall, much older studio at the time, everyone was welcoming, everyone was friendly, everyone was helpful, everyone was working towards the same goal, and everyone had a passion for radio. It quickly became my Syracuse fraternity. I didn't need Greek letters. I had WJPZ. Those were my letters of my fraternity. And it was very special. I couldn't wait to go to the station after class. I couldn't wait to go to the station before class. And if we're being honest, I missed classes to come to the station. And, you know, when I was a freshman, it snowed 38 consecutive days. My freshman year. It's still a national record, by the way. And that snow prevented me from going to anthropology at 8 o'clock, almost all the time. It never stopped me from going to the Watson Studios to do my 6 a.m. Z89 sports information shift. The updates that we did every morning as part of the morning show. Never missed one of those. Didn't ever miss a Newhouse class. And they were all enjoyable, they were helpful, especially Rick Wright's class. But the truth is, Z89 was the most important classroom on campus. It's where I learned the most, and it's why I was successful after that. And I'm sure many people in this room feel the same way. The older Z89 staffers were my mentors when I was an underclassman. And then when I became an upperclassman, I became their mentor. And I'm also very proud to say I had 7 Z89 students become summer interns for me at Westwood One over the years. So Neil, I mentioned Jim. Dan Corson, cousin Danny, was the other assistant sports director. And they taught me about writing and the importance of writing. And they taught me about formatting. And they taught me about interviewing, creating content. And they were so patient with me on the air because my writing was very good. My writing was very good. They even said that. But I was terrible on the air. I mean, terrible. And so at the end of the first year as a freshman, they gave me a certificate, which I still have. And it said, I was awarded the Lawrence Taylor Award for the hardest worker on the staff, but also the New Yorker who couldn't lose his accent. And I'm still working on that, guys. Okay, and I'm getting close. But that certificate was, meant to be fun, and I appreciated the sentiment of it. But it also made me realize that maybe I wasn't going to become the next great sports announcer, no matter what I said. So it made me think. It was a wake-up call that maybe I should diversify a little bit and think about another avenue in broadcasting. So I dedicated most of my time after that to learning how to produce sports broadcasts. I didn't even know a producer existed, to be honest with you, before I got here. And we had these nightly 15-minute shows at 11 o'clock called Sports Wrap-Up. That was the training ground. We would recap all the day's action. And then January 4th, 1986, I produced my first ever live sports broadcast. It was Syracuse Orange women's basketball at Manley Fieldhouse against UConn, against the first-year coach named Gino Auriemma. I wonder whatever became of him. But from that moment, literally before halftime, I knew immediately that that's what I needed to do the rest of my life. That was my aha moment. I never felt the desire to go back on the air again. I did stuff at the station. But to me, it was all about that. I had the adrenaline rush like nothing I've ever had before. And I still get that adrenaline rush every time I'm doing a live broadcast. It's when you know. And that moment for me was it. Over the next year, when I was the assistant sports director, I tried to learn everything behind the scenes. What made the station run? It wasn't just turning on a mic and going on the air. I trained how to run the audio board. I learned how to DJ for a whole semester because that was minimal talking, so I couldn't screw that up too bad. I actually, and one summer and an entire semester, I was at the controls for the Saturday Night Dance Jam. 7 hours of non-stop dance music on the radio. It was great. That was the only thing I had to say once per hour, so I mastered that. It was a lot of fun. But I would pick the brains of everybody there who was smarter than me and ahead of me. Mike Tierney, who's here today, was working the program, and he suggested we should target the local audience and don't talk about Major League Baseball and the NFL as much, because our audience was Syracuse high school students and others. So we came up with 2 new weekly shows, which Ian actually referenced. Sportsline 89 was a weekly show on Sunday nights, call-in show. And some of the actual callers are honest, they pretend to be people who know the callers. And Ned from Metro is right over there, and Homer from Homer is right over there. And that's how we would know they were our friends calling in, to make it sound like a real show. But we also did a Saturday morning show called Press Box, which was a high school football and basketball show that actually outlasted me and several other regimes. It was very successful, and very proud of that show, for what we did during that time. So thank you, T-Bone, for those suggestions. I can name so many more people, literally, that impacted me. Carl Weinstein is sitting over there, and I was told to have a limited window, so I apologize if I can't say everybody's name here. I don't want the SU pep band walking in here and getting them off the stage. So, but there is one more Z89 person that I have to mention, because I owe a lot of my success to him. And when John gave you that unbelievable job on JPZ at 50 a couple of years ago, I mentioned him on that podcast too. But the production director at the time was named Andy Renninger. He was affectionately known as Jam Master Andy. That was his honor name. And Jam Master Andy hated sports. And I mean hated it. Didn't know the difference between a basketball and a football. Didn't want to know the difference between a basketball and a football. Hated when we were in his production studio. And hated everything about it. In fact, he would go to the GMs at the time and say, why are we wasting precious airtime with this meaningless drivel that is sports? He called everybody in the sports department sports weasels. And the sports director was head weasel. Yet despite all of that, for some reason he liked me. And he spent hours and hours and hours teaching me production. He taught me how to edit tape. He taught me how to do multi-track mixing. He taught me how to cut promos, EQ voices, loop audio way before digital editing made all of that way easier. And I later became the production director after him, and mixed all the jingles and all the promos and the PSAs. And when I graduated, those were the skills that got me my first job. It made the difference in my interview, it made the difference, and I was able to start my career right after that. I'm simply not where I am today without Andy. So thank you from a now Hall of Fame weasel. I want like to take a moment to brag about the 86-87 sports staff for a moment. You already saw Ian, who was a part of that. And I'm very proud that I can say I was the first person to put him on the air. And there were several other names you might be familiar with. Craig Carton went on to, and still is an outstanding talk show host, started his career that year at Z89 under our watch. Steve Goldstein, longtime voice of the Florida Panthers hockey team, started that year here at Z89. Then there was Kyle Kraska and Mike Dardis and Mitch Levy and Scott Cordishi and so many others who went on to have impressive on-air careers. And we were so deep, it was unbelievable. I like to say we had a 12-man staff and I was the 13th best person on it, because that's the truth. And that doesn't even include Kevin Martinez and Todd Harris and Sue Cornelius Edson and many others who became really successful in this business, just not on the air. And if I forgot a name, I apologize, but it was so talented, it was so deep, and more importantly, dedicated. I ran into T-Bone at the bar last night, and we talked about that press box show. So I'm going to relay a quick story here and go off script. Most people on a Friday night were at Fagan's or Chuck's or whatever it was at the time. Friday nights, we would send 8 people out to 8 different high school football games. And sitting out in December or November or whatever it was for a high school football game in Syracuse is not balmy. And they would sit there with a tape recorder, big heavy Marantz recorders back in the day, and do fake play-by-play into that tape recorder. And then they'd go interview the coach after the game, the winning coach, the losing coach, the player of the game. And then they'd all come back to the station afterwards, and we'd sit in that production studio, and we'd cut the tape. We'd edit the sound bites and the highlights, and they'd put together 2.5 to 3 minute packages on each game, and we lay it under music, and we would recap all the high school games the next morning. We were there till 3 or 4 in the morning every Friday night, the entire sports staff, doing that. And that's dedication, and I'm not surprised that all of them went on to be successful, because that's what we were all here for, and that's what JPZ is, and that's what we're proud of, and why we come back so much. It was unique then, and from everybody I've talked to this weekend, says it's the same way. We all pushed each other to be the best we can be. We all helped each other. No other student radio station in the country was and is such a fertile ground for gaining hands-on experience. All kinds of experience, not just on air. For the students that are here in the back today, please take advantage of those opportunities, because as legendary basketball coach John Wooden said, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And I will add that being versatile can be your biggest asset, especially in this age of media downsizing. The more you can do, the better chance you have of finding work and succeeding. That versatility landed me my first gig as a broadcast operations assistant at CBS Radio Sports. Right out of college, working on national radio broadcasts of Major League Baseball and the NFL, first in Spanish. And then after that, I transitioned to English once I learned the language. I graduated on Sunday, May 14th, 1989, drove to New York City Monday, May 15th, started my career at CBS Tuesday, May 16th, met my wife one day later, May 17th. Talk about hitting the trifecta all in 1 week, and hitting the lottery, actually, right in the span of 3 days. We started dating a few months later. We've been together ever since, 36 wonderful years. Although I was on the road a lot, so if you subtract all that, we're really honeymoon. Right? So it's probably about 25 years we've been in each other's presence, and so happy anniversary. And tonight is also the 25th anniversary of the last time she came to the Z89 banquet in 1991. She was my girlfriend at the time, and apparently she had such a good time. This is the next time she came. But I'm thrilled, Janet, that you were here today, and thank you for putting up with my work schedule, my travel schedule, and just me in general. I'm best taken in small doses. And I would not be the person I am or the success I had without you. So thank you very much for your support, your love. I love you. Thank you. While Janet did hold out on attending the banquet, she did come back to Syracuse quite often. We have amazing twin daughters. One of them, Jillian, attended a summer program here while in high school, and her sister Robin attended SU and graduated Newhouse in 2021. Robin is here as well today, and that means a lot that she would come celebrate this honor with me. Of course, I promised her to buy lunch at Varsity, but I don't think that was pivotal in her decision. Seriously, though, I'm so proud of the young lady you've become, the young woman you are, and I love that we can share the orange bond forever together. Her sister Jillian could not be here this afternoon and is instead in the Syracuse of the West Coast, otherwise known as San Diego. That's where she lives, so she is apparently the smartest Deneroff. And Jillian, I love you. I'm so proud of you too, and you are here in my heart today, and I can't wait to see you soon. Thank you. Thank you all for taking my friends that made the trip up just for this induction ceremony. I appreciate the support. I see the clock is winding down on my allotted time, but the beauty of sports is if the game isn't over, we go overtime. So I'm putting 5 more minutes on the clock, and we're heading into sudden death OT. Thank you. Back to CBS Radio for a minute. Beth Robinson, a former SU grad student herself, changed my whole life by hiring me right out of school year. There are no words for me to express my gratitude to her, but every day I tried to prove her right in the decision she made for hiring me. And every day I worked there, I tried to achieve excellence. I guess it worked because I mentioned I started on May 16, 1989. There were some company name changes and there were some promotions along the way. I went from producer to senior producer to coordinating producer to executive producer, and CBS eventually became Westwood One. But I was there until May 15th, 2024, 35 years to the day that I walked in that building. And most people don't get the opportunity to do what they love for 35 days. 35 weeks, 35 months, 35 years, 3.5 decades. I had the best seat in the house to some of the most amazing sporting events ever. And I thank all my former bosses for trusting me and allowing me that opportunity. It's impossible to be up here and encapsulate all those years in a short speech. And I realize this isn't a short speech anymore, but to be able to be on site for the national broadcast of so many great moments that you have watched or seen and many of you never get a chance to go to is just unimaginable to me as a student when I was in those studios. Major League Baseball, the playoffs, the World Series, NHL, Stanley Cup, Triple Crown of horse racing, Masters, Wimbledon, the Olympics, college football, college basketball, and the madness that is March, including producing the broadcast in 2003 when Syracuse won the national championship. Being in 1987 and suffering the heartbreak of us losing to Indiana. And then of course the NFL and the Super Bowl, which was my main gig for most years. The TV networks rotate the Super Bowl every year. Fellow alum Mike Tirico got his first chance to broadcast this year and did an amazing job, as he always does. But they take turns. But when I was at CBS Westwood One, we had the rights on radio every single year I was there. So I have the, I don't know what the right word, unfathomable distinction of being the person that's produced more Super Bowl broadcasts than anyone else in NFL history. And that is there's no question I am not there without this station. Also humbling, getting the opportunity to work with and or hire many of the best play-by-play announcers in the history of sports. Dick Enberg, Vin Scully, Jack Buck, Doc Embrick, Kevin Harlan, Mike Tirico, Ernie Harwell, Ian Eagle, of course. And remember, I said I came to SU because I wanted to become the next great play-by-play announcer. I actually wanted to be Marv Albert. That was my guy growing up in New York City. Never got the chance to be Marv Albert, but I worked with him for 8 years on Monday Night Football and the Super Bowl, and that was a dream come true. I also worked with his son Kenny Albert, and Sam Rosen, and Jason Benetti, another alum, Gary Cohn, Ryan Radke. I mentioned my ear for talent. Sometimes when you just hear a song and you think it's going to be a hit, for whatever reason, God blessed me with the ability to hear somebody's tape and know that they're going to be a good sports announcer. I knew it with Ian. I knew it with several others. And then when I was at Westwood, I hired Kevin Kugler, Brandon Gaughan, John Sadat very early in their careers, just to name a few. And I smile every time now when they're all over network television. It was a pleasure working with all those announcers and many more that I don't have time to mention here, but they all made me better at my job too. They say a coach or a GM is only as good as the players around them. And that's certainly true for me too. I got a lot of credit as a producer, and I appreciated all of it, but you can't do it without a crew. You can't do it without technicians and engineers and production assistants, and all of them were a part of this. And so I appreciate their significance in my journey too. I produced over 1,000 NFL games. The number of people I worked with is so many, and I appreciate all of them. Since parting ways with Westwood One almost 2 years ago, I started my own company called Standby Media, which offers freelance consulting, freelance production, but most of what I do is broadcast coaching for young announcers who want to get in this business or are in this business to help them improve. I also work with retired athletes who are trying to get in the media business. And that's very rewarding for me because it's something I always tried to do all the way through my career. One more thank you, and then I'll get off the stage. 11 months ago, I received a phone call from my friend Jim Gray. He and I worked together for many years at Westwood One. And way before that, he had already established himself as one of the greatest sports interviewers and reporters to ever appear on television. He told me there was an opening at a new sports museum that was coming in Las Vegas, the Fontainebleau Hotel, and he was opening it in conjunction with Tom Brady. It was going to feature the most iconic artifacts in sports history, and they were looking for a director to run it. The Fontainebleau subsequently hired me for that role, and the Hall of Excellence opened last summer. And if you are a sports fan, you would absolutely love the place. It's like heaven walking in, to me at least. We have over 300 artifacts, and each one of them features audio narration from some of the most recognizable voices of all time. Marv Albert, Bob Costas, Jim Nance, Morgan Freeman, and more. You want to see Michael Jordan's first ever pair of Air Jordans that he ever wore in a game? It's in our museum. All 7 of Tom Brady's Super Bowl rings? In our museum. The bat that Jackie Robinson used to break the color barrier in 1947 in Major League Baseball. That's there too. Artifacts from Shohei Ohtani, Babe Ruth, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, Muhammad Ali, Kobe Bryant, and Syracuse's Jim Brown, just to name a few. It's a special place, and I'm very grateful to continue my career there and be able to continue to tell stories about the legends of sports, albeit in a completely different setting than I did before. But all the athletes that are displayed in that Hall of Excellence share some traits that made them excellent. Discipline, determination, diligence, hustle, collaboration, and passion. Those are the same qualities that so many Z89ers excelled at since the inception of this station. Those before me, those while I was here, and even to this day. And that's what makes this place so special that we all keep coming back whenever we can. I want to congratulate my fellow inductees, Ben, Tex, and BB today. I am deeply honored to be acknowledged by this one-of-a-kind radio mecca, and to be now in a select group of amazing and accomplished alumni. I am especially proud and I'm especially proud to be the first sports weasel in the Hall of Fame, and to now wear the official Z89 orange jacket. I cherished my time here, and I cherish this moment now. Thank you very much.
Wow, absolutely incredible. You know, for years now, and especially since the shift to, creating this great event in the afternoon, current students, who we encourage them to come join, because you never know what you're going to learn from a Hall of Famer, right? You never know what kind of lessons they're going to pour onto you. And I think the lesson we can learn from this is, if you don't graduate, get your first job, and meet your wife in your first week after graduation, you're just not doing it. Congratulations. Who's ready to induct another Hall of Famer? I say we go ahead and get it started. Congratulations to class of 2008, Ben Green.
Benjamin Green, class of 2008.
Hi, my name is Kenny Beats, and I just thank you for allowing me to say some words about my good friend Ben Green. Ben and I first met at WJPZ. Now, WJPZ at the time was not Z89, it was Z-Rock 100, an AM carrier current station that just barely got around the campus. But anyway, that's where we both learned radio and learned our love of radio. And Ben is quick to share his love of radio with anyone who wants to learn. He is quick to sit down with anybody who wants to learn the technical aspects of radio, whether it's running the board or learning the studio equipment. He also talks with them about programming, and one thing that he does best is ideas about shows. Ben is one of the most creative people I've ever known. And even though he has left the SU campus, he is still active in the SU radio community. He is always participating in or even helping to organize events at WJPZ, even FM 88. He is always here and always ready to help out in any way possible. And Ben not only does that, but he is active in a Facebook page called Coming Together, which brings together the Black and Hispanic alumni of SU alumni and students here on campus. So Ben is always bringing people together with his love of radio, his love of getting the word out. And if there is anyone who is deserving of the prestigious orange jacket, it's my friend Benjamin Isaac Green. Go Orange!
What? Get my theme song in there. If you don't know me, my name is Benji, Mr. R&B. A lot of folks say, oh, R&B like rhythm and blues. And let's give you a quick history. First of all, I want to give honor to God for giving me the talent and presence to just to be here and to do the things I did in broadcasting. I like to say to the early DJs and ancestors of the student radio who laid down the path at WJPZ, I thank you. You laid the path that we had to walk. They began with basically sticks and stones, basically pieces of something. And that gray building called the ball house where Spectrum was, they began in the basement. You know, there was a fire hazard, but we ain't gonna say anything about that. And Rick Wright became their advisor, they moved up, and they started broadcasting. I remember, as a freshman, fall of 1977, Day Hall. I had something, to those of you who probably were born after 2015, there's something called a transistor radio. It looked like this, it had an antenna, and if you turn it the right way, you could pick up WJPZ AM. And I would hear that, and I thought it was cool. I heard Kenny D's and a bunch of other people. So, you know, that was my first hearing. And I did stuff at WAER, learned a lot, trained with, and given honor to Ms. Faith Barnhart, Mr. Henry Bruin, who helped train me along with Butch Charles, who's in the house. And I watched them. I learned from them. And they told me about all the things I was doing right and helped me. They allowed me to make mistakes. It was at AER, I got my production in. That's what I love, because I always loved radio. Can you imagine a 14-year-old kid with the old cassette thing that you popped in, you had a microphone, and I went to the speaker of our radio, and I was like the DJ, I listened to it. Yeah, sure, it was Mr. Michael Jackson. You know, the Jackson 5. I did that. So it was, you know, when I came to Syracuse, I had one of the most heartbreaking moments. I came here, I was going to be one of the greatest black filmmakers in media. I was duly enrolled in Arts and Sciences at Newhouse. Came in there, and then I applied, what do you call that? I registered for my class, film class. And then they said, okay, you have to pay for the film, and you have to pay for the rental of the film. Okay, my mother just barely made enough for me to come here. I couldn't afford that. My heart broke. So I didn't see my future anymore. But walking through the hallway, I was low. And I heard music. What's that? And they said, oh, that's WAER. And of course, naively, coming from New York, yeah, how much did that cost? And they said, free. Before they could breathe again, I was there learning how to write news. I was skilled. So I got my beginnings at WAER. And then for some odd reason, WAER decided to go the other way. Not student run. And I knew about JPZ, so Kenny like, come on over. When he showed me what they were doing, I was like, whoa, you guys operate, you do all this stuff? They said, yeah. I'm like, whoa. And I thank Kenny, and that's why you have him on the video. I remember my true beginnings when WJPZ was no longer AM. We were on cable, the local cable channel. It's 3 minutes like
New
that.
channel.
But you say that again?
New channel.
New channels, yes. And you could hear and watch if you wanted to, WJPZ. And I heard Kenny on there. He brought me in and he taught me everything. But I remember we kept the station on Thanksgiving. I think that was the Thanksgiving of 1980. You know, 81. I was here during Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the Golden Voice, Rich Usher, and I broadcasted live from the G Bar. What am I doing here in New Year's? I should have been in New York City. Woo! But no, I was dedicated. My roots ran deep with WJPZ. I was there because they told me in the future it's going to be FM. And I was like, okay, that's going to be cool. And yes, I was here. I walked in 1985. That's why at the beginning you saw Ben Green class of 85. I walked in 85. I had 13 credits of classes to take, but I wasn't going to let Syracuse, rob me. They said, go home and do it, and I did. I went home, I worked in broadcasting. I learned about being a traffic manager. Those are the people who enter into contracts. That was good because you see the money coming in. You put it in. Now you know how much your station is making, and you see your impact. Meanwhile, I got a chance to meet some of the greatest people. WNCA AM, talk radio. I remember Barry Gray. I remember the Dolans. Behind the scenes, the production students, watching them do their thing. I go, I used to do that. And the guy taught me some of that. I then worked at CBS AM, WWRL. I was a short-time news person there. K107, I was there doing their schedule of contracts and stuff. All the things that I learned from JPZ, working with people. Learning, watching, helping. It wasn't all about let me do, you just said it. No, at JPZ, you allowed me to make mistakes like they did at AER. When I learned what JPZ was doing, I was like, oh, I came into a show called Friday Night Street Beat. How many people remember that? That was like your R&B hip-hop thing we had on night, Friday nights. And the youngins, because I was older than them, the youngins there were talking about, oh, I got some old school music. And I was like, they put on something, but dude, I'm part of the old school. My generation began it, But we learned, and I shared some of the records I had. And the show went off great. And then a young man named, he's about my age, Bruce Melvin came in. He created the Sunday Night Love Line. I think a lot of people got together during that time. JPC's ratings cut on Sundays were very high. But I appreciate the JPZ people who helped me along the way. We went from Kenny D, who was cable, AM, cable, and then I happened to be here, working with everyone. We went after him. I remember that day clearly. So we're sitting in the news studio, and the local news came down. I said, "Oh, this is history in the making," and I kept that in my mind. So how do you keep history going? You have to give back. Someone has to remind those who are new who laid the road for them like they did for me. And that's what I did. I continued to be involved with JPZ after I graduated. When we started having the banquets, I was like, oh, came back, and it was good to see some of the classic folks and some of the new ones. There are faces here who I remember when they were these young green radio people. Dion, Damien, Cafelli. I remember, you saw some of the pictures. And I came back because I kept saying, when I was here, there was no one like me who came back to help me. And they were in their careers doing stuff because there wasn't a banquet then. But when a banquet got created, I purposely came back just to meet and see who's continuing our history. And as I look in the room, I go, wow. Like yesterday during our meeting, it was awesome to hear all these freshmen. Oh, my heart, I was there. Because I saw the light, the regeneration. Our roots are getting and are deeper than when they began. I thank you for that. Sir Kitty D's, thank you for that. I'm loving my orange and blue wife, Rhonda. Thanks for putting up with my orange and blue. As you know, and Rhonda knows, I love the mic. But most of all, it's about me talking to you as an audience. I understood that from AR and especially at WJPZ. And then all the other people, when Mr. Butch Charles created WOLF, the AM side, he reached people who want to hear something different, just like JPZ. We want different. And we touched the community big time. The phones would ring off the hook. I was like, wow, people all, are listening. Because at first I thought we're just a campus station, only students are listening. Nope. We were heavily supported, and so on to this day, by the community. We know how to reach them. We thought and think outside the box. That was the key. As an educator, I never left broadcasting. What I learned from you guys, and every time I come back, I learn new things. By the way, that new studio, I'm drooling because Rhonda knows, oh God, he's going to try to do that at home. Well, but I have taken this experience into the classroom. When I shifted in 2006 from broadcasting into education, I did something that I didn't know was going to become a thing in 2010. My first grade class, I said, hey, let's create a 1-hour radio show. This was when Google was a baby. And it had a little pocket place where you put stuff called Google Drive. Back then, we created a 1-hour radio show. I taught my kids. They wrote the script. I had a news director. I had a sports director. I had 2 guests. They chose the music. I was the engineer who put it all together. And I put it on the drive. Who knew years later they'd be calling it podcasting? So I'm like, okay, I'll let this slide. I'm a lawyer. And then, when I went out to teach at a Scholars Academy in Orange, where some of the top students, we did podcasts. Oh, yes. Each part from the people who did robotics, the people who did special skills with designing houses and different things, every section, you had students that did stuff. And one person had to be the interviewer. Other person was interviewing. And I recorded it. We brought up a mic. I said, okay, podcast time. They went and did their work. They came back. They had to interview their own, partners and say, okay, tell me, what are you doing? Why is that when you schedule something, how do you put that together on the computer? They were in depth. I had a young lady, she was in mini open. When I showed that to my admins, they were like, this is good. I said, yeah, you should have had this. This gets them to be critical thinkers. They can talk about, you can see how smart they are. They're not just learning from some video that they watch and you give them a test. They're actually doing what you taught them. That was cool. And during the pandemic was when I really thought, how can I make a step further from all the stuff I've learned? Well, I was watching during the pandemic Good Times. If you remember that show back in the day, they were live. They said, history in the making. And they said, the Jeffersons, history in the making. I said, hold up. I know I was a part of history in the making at SU. How can I do this? I'm like, oh. Then I thought about all the people who helped me along the way, of my brothers and sisters of color. Because they've been out there, some get recognized, some don't. And I thought about it, there's a group that I'm a part of. I've been a part of since I came back in '85 in New York called the Friends of SU. Go ahead, stand up for a second. She's wearing the t-shirt that one of my students designed. The Friends of SU. A group of students of color who are here, 60s, when they couldn't live on campus, they had to live off campus. They came together, they built relationships, just like JPZ. And they carried that into when they graduated, and they kept a tight network. I joined them, and I've been recruiting, speaking, helping people across the board, from FSU through JPZ in the same manner. What we did in JPZ, I also used some of that in FSU, brought people together. And I decided to come up with a podcast. We need to keep our history. Who would know who did what at SU at that time? I knew that a lot of our SU alums, once they graduate, they go on to bigger and greater things. Some of them, while here, like the students who started JPZ, they made history. But who's writing it down? So I interviewed 3 of my founders. And they were telling me things I didn't even know they created while being here at Syracuse. There's one woman, class of 70. She helped create what was then the Black Studies program. Now it's the African American Studies Department. One of my first members was the first student to get a degree in that. I spoke to Darryl Bell from a different world. He graduated the same time I did. I chatted with him, this young lady named Sharon, I forgot Cheryl's last name, but she began at Fox as a PA. Now she's at New York 1 doing the news every night. Cheryl Wills, thank you. So I realized, man, I'm a part of history. There are a lot of you in here who are making history. Jeff, I remember when you came. I was like, wait a minute. He said, Def, who means Def? No, but Jeff was knocking out the average Joe and Jane. So that kept me doing my stuff tight. Because I knew the stuff you were doing. A lot of you here were doing things, and don't think I was not paying attention. And I'm bringing that into my everyday of doing what I do. As an educator, JPZ is in me. I'm teaching my kids how to use their voice. First graders, can you imagine? Mr. Green, I don't know how to do this. Excuse me. Oh, Mr. Green, can you help me because I think I lost my place. I teach them how to use their voice. In my room, they don't say I can't. They'll say I'm unable to do this right now, but I'm sure if you help me, I can do this. Same thing with JPZ. I'm unable to use the machine. Oh, let me show you. Oh, okay. We get it done. As an honorary inductee, the Hall of Fame, I want to thank everyone who voted for me, who believed in me. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And as you know, I'm just at the beginning. This is 2026. Wait the 23rd. You're going to see a lot happen. Once again, I thank everyone. I thank you. Let's have one hell of a night. Woo!
Man, for somebody who graduated in 2008, means born in 87, we talked a lot about 80s JPZ. Thank you, Ben Green. One more time. Well, as we mentioned earlier, we will celebrate another JPZ Hall of Famer, BB Good, tonight, which is going to be so great. Long time coming. She couldn't make it last year, so it's going to be a special evening at our banquet. It's going to be a big celebration. But last but certainly not least, we have one more inductee into our Hall of Fame. Are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? His name is synonymous with WJPZ. It's Stephen Tex Kurtz, everybody.
Alumni Association Hall of Fame. Welcome Stephen Tex Kurtz, class of 2005.
What a privilege it is to induct Stephen Kurtz into WJPZ's Hall of Fame. To some of you, he's Tex. To others, he's the dude. While I'm lucky to say he's my friend. Hi, I'm Josh Wolf, class of 2003. And people have made the mistake of doubting Stephen, and I'm sorry to say, I'm one of them. I'll never forget the first time we met. He introduces himself and casually mentions he's on the air at a big station in Dallas. I couldn't imagine a high school student being on the air in a major market. So I doubted Stephen. I started peppering him with questions to prove that he was full of it. After 10 minutes of radio jeopardy, I realized I misjudged him. He was, in fact, on the air at a major station in Dallas. I should have acknowledged my mistake, but months later, I foolishly doubted Stephen again. WJPZ telephones were older than any of its students. Stephen generously offered to donate the phone system from his father's company to the station. I didn't think for a second that he had the know-how to set up this complex phone system, but figured he'd be humble when he failed. Well, you know where this is going. Naturally, Stephen installed the phone system perfectly and faster than anticipated. I learned my lesson and didn't make the same mistake a third time. I never doubted Stephen again, even when he told me he thought WJPZ could significantly upgrade his signal. Of course he made it happen, and for that and everything else, we are so appreciative. Now, Stephen is far too humble to tell you about the calls and texts he's gotten from the decades of students at all hours of the night. And when he's literally been all over the world, there was never a doubt that A, Stephen could jump in to assist, and B, that he could fix whatever the issue was almost instantly. As dedicated as he is to the station, he's even more devoted to his lovely wife, parents, siblings, and friends. If I were to enumerate all of Stephen's contributions, small, medium, and large, to the station, its students and alumni, our Alumni Association, banquet festivities, education conferences, and generally solving everyone's technical meltdowns, I would be speaking until banquet 46, and no one wants that. In conclusion, Stephen, from all of the students and alumni you've helped, mentored, friended, shared a laugh with, been there for, made memories with, and have been an all-around stand-up guy for, thank you. We are forever in your debt. Your entry to WJPZ's Hall of Fame is well-earned and deserved, and for this there can be no doubt. Congratulations.
I don't even know where to start. Thank you, Josh, for that wonderful intro, and of course, thank you guys. I'm just overwhelmed. As an 18-year-old kid, I never in a million years dreamed that when I wandered into this random house on Ostrom Avenue, where they were doing a certain promotion called Show Your Belly for Nelly. Almost 25 years ago, actually, right to this day right now. When I was just visiting SU, I was an accepted student, but my parents wanted me to make sure I wanted to go to Syracuse. And so when I went to that house on Ostrom and I walked through that door, I never knew that, I never thought that I would be standing right here in front of you guys, accepting this amazing honor. Walking through those doors all those years ago was the first time I felt it. And I know anyone who has walked through those doors before me or since, whether it was the Spectrum Building, the house on Ostrom, or any incarnation of the studios at Watson Hall, has felt it too. That unmistakable feeling that you're a part of something much bigger than yourself. Even though I was more than 2,000 miles away from home, there was always somewhere I could go. A place filled with a diverse group of people working together to continue the legacy that is WJPZ. It was, and it continues to be, a family. Maybe we didn't share the same parents or come from the same places or even hold the same views or beliefs, but that's exactly what makes and made our family strong. Some might even say unbreakable. I walked in thinking I had so much to give WJPZ, not realizing how much more WJPZ would give to me. The relationships, both personal and professional, the experiences, and the impact it would have on my life. From that very first day, I knew I needed to give Z89 everything I had so that Z89 could continue giving to others what it already had begun giving to me. If I'm being honest, that's only part of it. While I didn't realize it at the time, at least for me, I know many of you feel the same, that there was more to being at WJPZ than just doing a show or having fun with your friends. Being at WJPZ meant you were learning all of the time. Well, almost. Something I realized much later in life is that Z89 taught me more than any professor, class, paper, lab, or test ever could. In fact, Z89 was instrumental in shaping who I am today. Z89 taught me many important life lessons, how to see things from other people's viewpoints, how to truly listen, how to be compassionate, and most importantly, how to be a leader. It taught me that success is rarely the result of one or two people. More often, it's the culmination of many people from different backgrounds with unique viewpoints and skills, working and winning together. As I ventured into my professional career, it was these lessons that gave me more wisdom than many of my peers around me, some who were much older than I. I like to call that the WJPZ effect. As many alumni might tell you, back when I first started at Z89, we didn't have much. We played music off CDs, imaging, and pretty much everything else came off mini disc or Kurtz. There were only 2 computers in the entire station. Both were hand-me-downs from the University Electronics Recycling Department. Our budget came from a handful of sponsorships from places like Holy Shirt, Marshall Square Mall, and that terrible pizza place I can never remember the name of.
Potatoes!
Yes, thank you. We even borrowed paper from the computer lab across the street, which is now demolished, so we could print the selector logs to make sure that everybody knew what music to play. And don't even get me started on those 1970s phones that Josh so lovingly told us about. I say all of this not to show how far we've come, but to show that even then, with limited resources, the legacy, the culture, and the family that is WJPZ was alive, well, and thriving. It was back then that I made a commitment to myself that I would always do everything in my power to ensure that WJPZ remained the greatest media classroom. Over the years, we've been fortunate to make tremendous strides and keep the station at the top of its technical game. And of course, we're not done yet. I say that not to brag, but to demonstrate that while so much has changed over the last 25 years, my personal mission and my barometer of success hasn't. To ensure that WJPZ continues to positively impact and shape the next generation of professionals, whether in broadcasting or beyond. If my efforts even help one person achieve their goals, to me, that's a huge win. Now for the hard part. There is absolutely no way that I would be standing here in front of you all accepting this amazing honor without so many people that have surrounded and supported me over the years. The list is really long, and I know you all want to actually have some time to get ready for banquet tonight. So I will try and keep this brief, and if I leave you out, please don't take it personally. I think everybody else thanks me for it. First and foremost, I have to say thank you to Josh Wolf. From that very first day when I walked into the station as a student, to becoming to becoming one of my best and closest friends, to standing at my wedding as my best man, and of course, giving me that great introduction today, as well as everything else in between, thank you. Your commitment to the people you hold close, as well as to the students of Z89 is unmatched, and for that, I'm extremely thankful. Of course, I would not be here without my partner in crime since 2008, and one of the smartest minds that I've met both in broadcast and way beyond, and just a great person to boot. fellow Hall of Famer Alex Silverman. Working alongside you for the past almost 20 years has been an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to many, many more pre-banquet and summertime Whirlwind Station makeovers in the future. Watching you grow into the amazing person you are now has been one of my greatest pleasures, and I'm also very proud to call you one of my best friends. Thank you. Rob Crandall, we've been an amazing team almost since I walked into that station, and at the time you were to electronics and audio equipment you were at the time to electronics and audio equipment to what I was to computers and networking. And together, our knowledge bettered the station by leaps and bounds. Your passion for learning and sharing knowledge are second to none, and I hope you know that you have actually taught me so much. I just hope I've been able to repay the favor. I cannot count the number of late nights, early mornings, long summer trips, even almost getting brand new station equipment stolen out of your sob. All because of our shared love for WJPZ. For all of this, thank you. Jag, your commitment to WJPZ is truly unmatched, and I'm very proud to call you one of my greatest friends. From stepping in to lead the station as a student during trying times, to the WJPZ at 50 podcast, and so much more. Whether providing much needed comedic relief or a fresh perspective, thank you for always being a phone call away. Matt Del Signor, I can honestly say that you have taught me more about music and the science of radio than anyone else, besides Josh maybe. But in all seriousness, thank you for indulging my radio crazy, and of course for being a great friend. I appreciate you. Over the many years of working with WJPZ, I've met some really incredible people that have not only shown an amazing commitment to Z89, but have also shared the goal of bettering the station for the future. These are just a few of the many names that have been so amazing to work with. I'm very proud and privileged to call all of you friends as well. Corey Crockett, Alex Brewer, Liz Doyen Guptas, Sam Candell, thank you all. To the Hall of Famers that have come before me, thank you. There are no words to truly illustrate the amount that you all have contributed to WJPZ. If it weren't for you, I would not be where I am today. To all the students, both former and current, it has been and continues to be an honor to work with each and every one of you. Watching you all grow and flourish is a privilege and a great gift. Thank you. I also have to say thank you to my family, because if not for them and their support, I would not have been able to accomplish a fraction of the things that I have. And last but certainly not least, I have to say thank you to my amazing wife of almost 12 years, Renee. Thank you for putting up with the incessant radio talk, endless amounts of phone calls, emails, and text messages at all hours from station staffers randomly pulling over to the side of the road so I could log in and check a transmitter or automation computer, listening to the same stories over and over, pretending like you had just heard them for the first time. And not to mention the countless days and nights of me being 2,400 miles away, bettering the station. And that does not even begin to scratch the surface. Thank you for loving and supporting me unconditionally. I truly could not have done it without you. I love you. Finally, thank you to Z89 for being the greatest media classroom and so much more. Thank you, everybody.
Now, selfishly, I can say that a WJPZer, a Hall of Famer, is the one who took me to Billy Bob's for the very first time. Thank you for that text. That was a great night. Well, let's give it up one more time for all of our friends.